or to our website at allamericangold.com.
Hey, Larry Elder here. Thank you for listening to the Bucky Dillon Show, hosted by the Liberty Revolt and KHNC.
Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. Thanks for hanging out with me today. It's great to be with you right here live in Johnstown, 1360 KHNC Freedom Radio. Guys, I'm very excited to be with you today. I would like to give a quick shout out to Jerry at SearsRealEstate.com. My wife and I are currently in the process of buying our first home, and it's a very intimidating process. Jerry has been in Northern Colorado for 60 years. He's been in real estate since 2005. So he knows what he's looking for. He knows what to avoid, and he wants to make sure that you get the best possible home for the best possible price. It's a contract that you're signing with hundreds of thousands of dollars on the line, written up by bankers and lawyers. So don't go at it alone. Get professional representation. Contact my friend Jerry Axum at Sears Real Estate. Jerry at SearsRealEstate.com. Guys, this is the Bucky Dillon Morning Show, our morning show, a collaborative between myself and the freedom-loving, free-spirited Patriot community right here in Northern Colorado, or tuning in anywhere in the world on the live stream, youtube.com/Liberty Revolt. I'm excited to be with you. You know, one more other thing we have going for us right now. One more thing that we have going on for us right now, actually, is on the website 1360khnc.com. We are now selling CBD products. So definitely check that out. Guys, if you struggle with insomnia, anxiety, joint pain, heartache, and you probably do if you're watching the news cycle like I am, then contact me or go to 1360khnc.com and get yourself some CBD products. And really, nothing helps with insomnia or facilitating muscle relief, pain relief, than CBD products like the lotion. That's what I use. So you can find that we got the best deal on it that you can get. Really, we have tons and tons of transactions, so we get a great discount on the credit card charge when people use their credit card to order online. Also, all of these products are made right here in Colorado, grown, processed, and I don't mean processed with chemicals. We're talking 100% natural, organic, no THC, lab certified, all right here locally in Colorado. So we don't have to pay shipping. In fact, we get a better deal on the CBD products than the CBD source we're getting it from. So go to the website, 1360khnc.com/shop if you want to support the show. I want to talk about draining the swamp. Now, how do you actually do it? I'll tell you how. Electoral reform. You may have heard me say on this show many times that if I was a single issue voter, that issue would be electoral reform. Why? Because how we conduct our elections is the foundation of our democracy or our republic. So, for better or worse, nowhere in the Constitution does it mention political parties. And by looking to the writings of our founders, it seems apparent that they never would have thought that our current party system would exist in the form that it does today, and would have almost certainly seen it as detrimental to the republic if they could. Quite honestly, the founders would be shocked and appalled by the state of many of the union's institutions as they exist today. One might say, destination screwed. John Adams wrote a letter to Jonathan Jackson, October 2nd, 1780, Quote, "There is nothing which I dread so much as a division of the republic into two great parties, each arranged under its leader and concerting measures in opposition to each other. This, in my humble apprehension, is to be dreaded as the greatest political evil under our Constitution." So as much as Donald Trump has spoken out about, draining the swamp, much of this rhetoric is undermined by the lack of talk about electoral reform. Credit where credit is due, he has diminished a record-setting number of government regulations that do, in fact, burden our economy and send our businesses overseas to China, where they can get rich. And overall, the number of bureaucrats retiring outnumbers those joining the force. However, among the many reasons Donald Trump was elected, and I'm not talking about Russia, I'm not talking about racism, was that he was an outsider who presented an opportunity to shock the system and shake things up. People all across our country, from progressives to libertarians and everyone in between, have felt abandoned by our political establishment. Politicians make big promises to the people on the stage. Then they retreat to their dens where they call up massive corporate lobbyists to fund them in exchange for political favors. And we all know it. Everybody knows it. Obama and Romney's top campaign contributors were literally the same 10 corporate interests. Obama was handed a list by Citibank of recommendations for his administration. And who do you think he appointed? Every single person on the list. The whole point of a democracy is to grant the blessing of public confidence in our government and assure that the government exists with the consent of the people. So, the two-party system. How did we get here? Where did our current system come from? How has it changed throughout our history? How is it influenced by our monetary system? Why does our national news media seem to be so partisan? And are there any viable alternatives? Please, God, let there be a viable alternative. Please. Well, I, Bucky Dillon, have a suggestion. But first, the history. Over the course of our country's history, there have been quite a number of political parties, although most have never gained any traction and most have been extremely short-lived. You're listening to 1360 KHNC Freedom Radio.
Are you paying too much for your home, life, or auto insurance? It only takes 10 minutes to find out. Hi, this is Kevin Bowles with Badger Insurance Advisors. Choosing insurance plans can be difficult. That's why I make it easy. I'll make the calls, compare the plans and prices, and find you the insurance plan that fits your needs. Best of all, my help is at no cost to you. Call me today at 303-359-1799 or visit badgerinsuranceadvisors.com. Let me find the right insurance for you.
Hi, this is Bob Enyart with Colorado Right to Life. Please work to abolish abortion, but reject all so-called pro-life efforts to regulate child killing. Even on the surface, regulations undermine the very concept of the right to life, and they convince even our own judges, tragically, that the fetus they consent to killing must not be a real child. See AmericanRTL.org/regulations for more.
Hey, it's Larry Elder. Thank you for listening to me every weekday from 5 p.m. to 8 p.m. right here on 1360 KHNC, the roar of the Rockies. Do you own a business in northern Colorado or surrounding areas? Are you looking to reach a conservative, family-based, loyal audience which could grow your business? Well, take my advice and just call 970-587-5003 or email on the air at 1360khnc.com and tell them Larry sent you.
Hey folks, in today's world of turmoil and change, how do you prepare for the next crisis? With propaganda-filled airwaves, who do you trust for the straight scoop? Our company, PacManUSA.com, is built on 60 years of experience, truth, and integrity. We offer hard-to-get items covering a wide range of needs, things not found in the local big box store. Visit us at PacManUSA.com. That's PacManUSA.com.
The Bucky Dillon Show is a Liberty Revolt Media production. www.libertyrevoltmedia.com. Today, the three most notable minor parties are the Green Party, the Libertarian Party, and the Constitution Party. The Libertarian Party is the oldest and by far the most popular, and as of 2019, Libertarians held office in 176 minor positions in government. However, that being said, since 1852, we've elected without exception either a Republican or a Democrat to the presidential office. Before that, it was either a Democrat or a Whig. Before that, we had a Democrat Party and a National Republican Party. And before that, we had the Democratic Republicans versus the Federalists. Literally, George Washington is the only president ever to be elected without a party affiliation. The party system is seemingly and inevitably a part of America's political design. Groups with like-minded agendas will always congregate, and some arbitrary name will be given to represent the said group. So at some point, political platforms are inevitable in any large-scale democratic process. And this isn't the worst thing. I mean, people have proposed the idea of just eliminating political parties altogether. But the problem I see with that is most people don't actually research their politics. So having a party platform gives them something to guess off of, right? It gives them something to take for granted. They can make a lot of assumptions about a candidate based upon their party platform, which I think, just for the sake of convenience, is probably one of the best approaches. But eventually, if there's not ranked choice voting, it will devolve into two major parties. And these parties can be characterized by opposite worldviews, as described by Thomas Sowell as the constrained and unconstrained vision. Jonathan Haidt, he's a psychologist, psychology professor. He's actually done some very interesting work into the psychology of moral foundations and how that corresponds with political alignment. He calls it moral foundations theory. Essentially, he tried to pinpoint a list of moral categories that can be consistently distinguished from each other through multivariable analysis. He ended up eventually with 6 moral foundational categories. Number 1, care and harm. This foundation is related to our long evolution as mammals with attachment systems and an ability to feel and dislike the pain of others. It underlies virtues of kindness, gentleness, and nurturance. Number 2, fairness and cheating. This foundation is related to the evolutionary process of reciprocal altruism. It generates ideas of justice, rights, and autonomy. In the original conception, fairness included concerns about equality, which are more strongly endorsed by political liberals. However, as the theory was reformulated in 2011 based on new data, it emphasizes proportionality, which is endorsed by everyone, but is more strongly endorsed by conservatives. Loyalty/betrayal. This foundation is related to our long history as tribal creatures able to form shifting coalitions. It underlies virtues of patriotism and self-sacrifice for the group. It is active anytime people feel that it's one for all or all for one. And again, this is one of those moral foundations that conservatives score drastically higher on than liberals, which is why a liberal's, stereotypically much more likely to say kneel for the national anthem or burn the flag, right? It's very rare that you will see conservatives tarnish the flag. They actually instinctually, because of their moral foundations, hold our traditions and our common symbols is more sacred than people on the left. Number 4, authority/subversion. This foundation was shaped by our long primate history of hierarchical social interactions. It underlies virtues of leadership and fellowship, including deference to legitimate authority and respect for traditions. And again, this is why you see, conservatives be the ones that kind of hold the thin blue line flag, because they are much more likely to respect social hierarchies and authority, in a sense. Not all authority. I mean, conservative is very punk rock. Libertarians are very much anti-government, anti-authority, but they do have more respect for our traditions and some of our social institutions more broadly, especially in terms of law enforcement. Number 5, sanctity and degradation. This foundation was shaped by the psychology of disgust and contamination. It underlies religious notions of striving to live in an elevated, less carnal, more noble way. It underlies the widespread idea that the body is a temple and can be desecrated by immoral activities and contaminants. And, this is, again, kind of why people who are more conservative are more likely to dig their heels in at the idea of homosexuality or transgender stuff. Is they just they have a sense of purity, and they feel, for lack of a better term, they actually feel contaminated or disgusted by certain activities, for right or wrong. Liberty and oppression. This foundation is about the feelings of reactance and resentment of people who they feel dominate them and restrict their liberty. Its intuitions are often in tension with those of the authority foundation. The hatred of bullies and dominators motivates people to come together in solidarity to oppose or take down the perceived oppressor. Essentially, what Jonathan Haidt found is that political liberals drastically emphasize the Care Harm Foundation with additional support from the Fairness and Cheating and Liberty/Oppression foundations, and actually shirk from the other foundations like loyalty to in-group, respect for tradition, and purity. Conservatives, especially religious conservatives, use all 6 of those foundations relatively equally, including loyalty, respect for authority and traditions, and sanctity. This tendency of the multi-party system to inevitably devolve into a duopoly is called Divergers Law. There's an actual name for it. It basically claims that as one party gains an advantage, lesser parties will naturally diminish and converge as people will cast their vote for the, quote, lesser of two evils, which reinforces the cycle of diminishment of the lesser parties until there are only 2 parties left, which is where we're essentially at right now. And the media goes along with it. After all, the first major newspapers were created as the communication branches of the first political parties. Founders were correct to dread the nature of political parties and the prospect of 2 great opposition parties dominating our electoral process. Any 2-party system will devolve into ugly politics that we see today. As the acquisition of power becomes more and more dependent on demagoguery, victimhood peddling, and opposition tactics. And it's that divisiveness in our society that is the most vulnerable aspect of our national security. That is what our enemies are trying to foster. When China comes out and says they want Joe Biden, and then Russia comes out and says they want Trump, what they're trying to do is make people play the red-blue game and hate each other. Because if they can tear away at the most vulnerable spot in our social fabric, they imagine that they can rip that fabric apart completely. And if they can do that, they don't need to overthrow us with military conquest. They can simply watch us destroy ourselves. As it stands today, almost no topic in the political discourse receives as much bipartisan disdain as our essentially two-party system. And there's social and political ramifications of it that people are also disgusted with. I mean, seriously, basically everyone I talk to feels like we should implement some form of ranked choice voting. On the left, they would like to vote for Bernie Sanders. On the right, they would like to vote for Ron Paul or Joe Jorgensen, but they feel like they're just absolutely trashing their vote. There feels like an almost unbridgeable divide in our political discourse, as if the very social fabric of the country has been coming apart. More so than ever. I think it's something like 60% of Americans feel like we're actually on the verge of a civil war. We are more divided now than we have been, with the exception of the Civil War. So, we need to be very careful about how we tread. And that's why I continue to just reinforce the idea that, guys, we actually need people who disagree with us. Isn't that the whole point in democracy? Isn't that the whole point in freedom of speech? Is that you put your ideas up against someone else's ideas and you try to find a common ground? Or at least you try to vote with your best intentions and you hope that someone who disagrees with you will come in and vote in a way that accounts for the areas where you're ignorant or just wrong. We're all looking at the world through a keyhole. And what's interesting is we actually identify a lot of the same problems. We just have different paths that we choose as the solution to those problems. So it's become almost like my catchphrase now. Are you ready? Here it goes. We need progressives pointing out discriminations and disparities. And we need conservatives digging their heels in and making sure we're not destroying what works for the sake of building some utopia. And we need libertarians and independents pointing out that our monetary system is corrupt and poisoning all of our political processes. It is almost certain that whoever wins the presidential election will not have the large bipartisan confidence of the people, but will nevertheless enjoy the full approval of our financial elite. I think we can all agree with that. This feeling is intensified drastically with exposure to our mainstream news media or social media environments. The truth is, our social fabric is absolutely being actively eaten away at by the polarizing nature of duopoly political systems. And a consortium of private banks and corporate interests have asserted massive influence over our politicians, our mainstream media, and even the electoral process itself. It lobbies extensively to keep any third-party candidate from having any chance of emergence. In fact, there are laws in place in which the government matches the money raised by political candidates once they've broken a certain threshold of organically raised funds. And this threshold is set at a level that is almost exclusively available to candidates of one of the two major parties. And so in many ways, our current system is irredeemably undemocratic and bent towards demagoguery, victimhood peddling, and opposition campaigns. And what is the result of this type of electoral strategy? Opposition tactics, demagoguery, victimhood peddling, and an entire media infrastructure that exists as a mere extension of this pathology. Well, let's keep in mind that every authoritarian regime that has ever come to prominence and committed mass atrocity did it on the base of victimhood peddling. You're listening to the Bucky Dillon Show.
Hey all, I'm Lee Turner Jr. of Tango Firearms Training, inviting you to join me on Sunday mornings at 8 o'clock for my show, Don't Be a Victim, right here on KHNC 1360, The Roar of the Rockies.
1360khnc.com has CBD products. Click on the shop button and get yours today.
Just go to 1360khnc.com/shop. The CBD on our website is 99% pure, all natural, no pesticides, non-GMO, is grown organically right here in Colorado, and is 100% THC free. Oh, and did you know ours is the lowest price CBD anywhere in Northern Colorado? For all your CBD needs, just log on to 1360khnc.com/shop.
Back in the USSR. Socialism, like the ancient ideas from which it springs, confuses the distinction between government and society. As a result, every time we object to a thing being done by government, the socialists conclude we object to it being done at all. We disapprove of state education, and the socialists say we are opposed to any education. Socialism. Frederick Bastiat, The Law.
Back in the USSR.
If you love wealth better than liberty, the tranquility of servitude better than the animated contest of freedom, go home from us in peace. We ask not your counsel nor your arms. Crouch down and lick the hands which feed you. May your chains be set lightly upon you, and may posterity forget that you were ever our countrymen. Samuel Adams.
Does this corrupt monetary system give you a whack to the head or a poke in the eye? Call Patriot Trading Group at 800-951-0592. That's 800-951-0592. Don't be a stooge. Buy gold and silver today.
Hi, KHNC listeners. Jerry Axton with Sears Real Estate. Please keep me in mind when you are ready to buy or sell, or if you have real estate questions. Another option is the lease with option to buy. The lease program is set up with a year-to-year lease and guarantees a fixed rent and purchase price for 5 years. Jerry Axton, 970-576-1089, 576-1089. Jerry at SearsRealEstate.com.
My name is Dwayne Brothwell. Listen to my show, Mystery Babylon, every Sunday, 11 a.m. I will show you how the birth certificate image of the beast binds you to Babylon the bank for the debt money we use to buy and sell with. That's every Sunday, 11 a.m.
Great minds think alike. Thank you for listening to the Bucky Dillon Show, hosted by the Liberty Revolt. Join me, Larry Elder, today at 5 on 1360 KHNC. Now back to Bucky Dillon.
It does tickle and spoil me drastically to hear Larry Elder say my name. Guys, Larry Elder is now on our station, 1360 KHNC, 1360 AM. You can hear him every weekday evening from 5 to 8. And I've been listening. I love Larry Elder. I think he's a tremendous thinker. I think he's absolutely hilarious. So we have the Divergers Law, which basically states that without some form of ranked choice voting, people are going to inevitably devolve into two major parties, because as one party gets powerful, people start the lesser parties start converging together in opposition to that party, and that's how you end up with this throw your vote away kind of thing that we have now. This system has manufactured tremendous division amongst the general population. There are very opposing philosophical beliefs held by conservatives and liberals, but the differences in our elected major party politicians are mostly aesthetic, right? Of course, the parties battle it out for control of the three branches of government. By the way, just for my friend AOC, the three branches are the judicial, the Congress, and the executive, right? Just a little just help her out a little bit, right? So they battle it out for control of the three branches, and the opposition party does everything it can to disrupt, create gridlock, and even just embarrass the members of the other party. But behind the scenes, both parties take massive amounts of lobbyist money from the military industrial complex, big oil, big pharma, big tech, and even foreign governments and a consortium of other wealthy entities. And we know this for sure and certain. We are absolutely certain of this. In fact, I just did an entire episode on Joe Biden just the other day about how he is so anti-progressive in so many ways. Guys, nobody took money from Wall Street and big tech. I mean, he's literally putting Facebook executives in his administration, Goldman Sachs in his administration, just like Donald Trump, by the way, and members of the military industrial complex into his administration. If you don't think that Joe Biden is going to be Bush Obama, just dumber, slower, sleepier, and, sniffing children along the way, then you would be wrong. It seems that there's far more money coming from these lobbyists than any grassroots fundraising campaign can compete with. Both sides will cater to their lobbyists. Both are united in keeping the Patriot Act in place, and both will fill their cabinets with candidates suggested to them by the banks. Worst of all, both parties and any significant political actor within them are manipulated by a cabal of central banking interests who will give unlimited resources to their preferred candidate, pay off the heads of the national parties to block a popular candidate from the nomination, Bernie Sanders. And by the way, Bernie Sanders just bent the knee and endorsed the candidate of the Democrat Party. Both times he was just openly cheated. He's got no backbone, right? At least Donald Trump would stand up for himself, would go out swinging. I don't think Bernie Sanders is going to stand up to anyone, because as soon as he's cheated out, he goes, oh, I guess I'll kiss the ring like a total coward. And he is. Bernie Sanders is a total spineless coward. And I liked Bernie Sanders in the beginning, before he adopted some of the identity politics, and before I was as economically literate as I am now. And I'm not saying I have all the answers, right? I'm looking at the world through a keyhole, and I understand there's a legitimate reason for people to be concerned with wealth inequality, and I see it. But Bernie Sanders is not the hero he's made out to be, and I cannot believe how many people I see just worshiping this guy. It's pathetic. But these bankers will not only give endless funds to their preferred candidate or pay off the party to block a nomination, they will literally manufacture a recession, right? They will finance civil unrest or fund foreign military aggression to stop a sitting president, or outright assassinate any political entity which poses a substantial threat to the debt money system that makes it quite literally impossible to ever escape their financial domination. Our country is in the midst of an identity crisis, a zenith in the conflict of visions. It is largely an ignored crisis, greater than any of the problems that the opposing political parties rightly point out. It's more destabilizing than the growing levels of wealth inequality, more unsustainable than our mass unregulated immigration. It's as destined for failure as our fraudulent reserve notes. Can you hear those money printers whirling out of control? They are being pushed to the brink of their capacity by both parties right now, particularly Joe Biden. He's not even reading these bills before he signs them. They put something in front of him, and he signs it if he can stay awake that long. So what the hell can we do? I just laid out the problem. Let me lay out some solutions, right? Two-party systems are necessarily winner take all, as in whoever gets the most votes wins. This may seem reasonable prima facie. But let's dig in a little. When considering primaries, a presidential candidate may only win 29% of the popular vote, which means that 71% of the population isn't getting what they want. Thinking that winner takes all voting is democratic in a numerical sense is a convenient illusion. This leaves smaller parties with no chance. Ever been chastised for throwing your vote into the trash can of votes? Of course you have. Ever heard people opine about how you've got to choose the lesser of two evils, as if still voting for someone evil was as fine and dandy as mom's apple pie? And how many times have you said something along the lines of, man, I really don't like the guy I'm voting for, but the other one just sucks a whole bag of things I'd rather not apply my own lips to? Ranked choice voting throws all these obnoxious and Karen-esque arguments out the window. You can finally express your fealty to the anti-HOA party without worrying that you'd be better off using your ballot as TP. Ranked choice would allow you to pick the anti-HOA party as your first choice, the Green Party is your second, the Conservative Party is your third, and whatever virtue signaling corporate cutout is representing the Liberals as your last choice. I'm sure this would prove how many Americans are tired of our corporate duopoly. No longer beholden by shame, voters could push for the candidates that they actually want to win. You're listening to the Bucky Dillon Show.
You might want to sit down before you hear this. Inactivity leads to 3.2 million deaths a year. So actually, you might want to stand up. Whoa, you just did a squat. See what we did there? All right, everyone, just take a seat. Oh, now stand up. That's 2. Feel that burning in your thighs? That means you're doing it right. Feels good, doesn't it? Get started at heart.org/make-moves. Unless you're doing squats. Those can come first.
Most people think they can't afford to invest in gold and silver. But at the Patriot Trading Group, we believe that everyone should have the opportunity to own hard assets. That's why we created our Preferred Metals program. You can get started for as little as $100 a month. Go to allamericangold.com and click on our Preferred Metals icon to learn how you can get started today. Or call us at 800-951-0592. The Patriot Trading Group, allamericangold.com.
Hi, KHNC listeners. Jerry Axum, real estate agent with Sears Real Estate. Established in 1972, locally owned, and our office is in Greeley. Growing up in Greeley, I am very familiar with the community and surrounding towns. I'd like to talk to you about your real estate questions, needs, or wants. Jerry Axum, 970-576-1089. 576-1089. Or Jerry at SearsRealEstate.com.
This is Sam Shook, Navy Vet and Medicare Specialist. I just want to thank the KHNC listeners for their support and trust in me as their Medicare specialist. If you are currently on Plan F, we are in a window of opportunity that can save you a lot of money towards your monthly premium. Please contact me at 970-413-4939. If you are getting into Medicare soon or are already enrolled and have questions, please call me at 970-413-4939. Again, thanks KHNC listeners.
欢迎收听 KHNC 广播电台 Bucky Dillon 早安秀，大家的早安广播，谢谢。
So with ranked choice voting, people could actually vote for the candidate they wanted to without feeling like they've just completely wasted their vote. The parties with the fewest votes along the ranking system would be cast out from the ballot, in which case the person's next choice on the ballot would apply. This way, we'd make sure that the candidate who won would actually have managed to win the popular vote in their community. 20 cities and 4 states have already gotten on board with ranked choice voting when it comes to primaries. However, one state, Maine, is looking to take it a step further and use ranked choice voting for the whole of their general election. Other countries that already use ranked choice voting include Ireland, Scotland, New Zealand, and Australia. This system will also greatly reduce negative campaigning because they have to appeal to people who aren't just in their base. With ranked choice, you've got to make yourself and your policies actually look good. And hell, you'll have to actually have policy solutions. What a concept. To win the primary votes of as many people as possible and the secondary votes of all those who prefer your political competition. Maybe you'll be able to trash the other guys a little bit, but not in the fantastic style of our current political races. Ranked choice voting will also put an end to gerrymandering, which is just another way of saying political redlining. Now, some people, especially here at the station and in the conservative movement, will, knock me a little bit for being open-minded to progressive ideas sometimes. But I think Andrew Yang actually had a pretty solid idea when he brought up democracy dollars. These are two of America's favorite words side by side. Not only does the rhetoric give us that warm, fuzzy America, yeah, feeling, but the idea of democracy dollars stands up to the Citizens United law and seeks to make political campaigns more about people and less about corporate money. Democracy dollars were proposed as a solution to campaign funding issues by Andrew Yang, who ran in the Democratic primaries. He was predictably ousted from prime time and received far less attention than the other candidates, likely because Yang was less an establishment Democrat than an ideologue and a reformist. Democracy dollars would work like this. Every American gets $100 in the form of a voucher, which could possibly be tax deductible. This would be a use it or lose it voucher. You could not store them up for years and donate a larger amount later on, nor could you redeem it for any other purpose. Although, I do understand that corruption exists, and I'm sure some clever people would find a way to low-key pay off people to spend their democracy dollars in a particular way. I'm sure some of it would exist, but that susceptibility seems less corrupted than our current system, don't you think? And I would say, in the opinion of the 7 out of 10 Americans who feel as if our politicians are being controlled by shadowy, outside wealthy forces, which they absolutely are. People could spend these, quote, democracy dollars on the campaign or campaigns of any politicians they choose. This way, the politicians whom people wanted to run would actually get the most funding. This would essentially serve as the reverse of our current system, where we make political decisions after being bombarded with ads and propaganda. As it is today, less than 5% of the population donates to political campaigns. How many would contribute if it didn't come out of pocket? Certainly not 100%. Americans are notoriously lazy. But if even 20% were to utilize this policy, we would completely wash out the current levels of lobbyist money. If 50% did, we would outspend lobbyists 4-1. And if one thing is true about Washington, it's that money talks. Of course, this would demand that people go out of their way to do political research. And it's not unthinkable that lobbyists would just drum up campaigns that said, don't throw your precious democracy dollars into the third-party trash can. And electioneering would get all weirdly meta. But I think a multi-party ranked choice voting system would help counter that relatively effectively. So those are just a couple of my ideas for democracy dollars. For electoral reform. I think there are a lot of great ideas on both sides, and it is one of the most bipartisan issues we actually have. Now, some people have talked about direct democracies. Like, what if the lazy electorate decided to dive headfirst into civic duty by giving ourselves the chance to write laws, right? What if we weren't always beholden to our representatives, which, do they really represent us, to do so, or if we actually did it ourselves directly? Though many may nominate direct democracy as mob rule, rightly in many cases, it stands that some countries with this system of governments are doing very well. Let's examine them in a little bit more detail. Switzerland, known for its Alps and yodeling beauties and banking and watches and cheese, which I love, has a system of direct democracy. They know a thing or two about the stratification of political parties. In fact, one of these came to prominence with the moniker Anti-PowerPoint Party because of their belief that this software was wreaking havoc on the economy. Final segment coming up. You're listening to the Bucky Dillon Morning Show, our morning show.
Hi, KHNC listeners. Jerry Axon with Sears Real Estate. Please keep me in mind when you are ready to buy or sell, or if you have real estate questions. Another option is the lease with option to buy. The lease program is set up with a year-to-year lease and guarantees a fixed rent and purchase price for 5 years. Jerry Axon, 970-576-1089, 576-1089. Jerry at SearsRealEstate.com.
1360 KHNC is proud to announce our partnership with My Kind CBD, a local Colorado-based company that uses no pesticides, no herbicides, completely organic, no heavy metals. All their products are CAO certified. That's right, independently lab certified. Our prices are the best in the country. Go out to 1360khnc.com and hit the shopping cart button and make your purchase today.
Hi, this is Taylor Grant. I'm a certified personal trainer with the National Academy of Sports Medicine and a longtime competing strongman athlete. I've recently opened a gym here in Loveland, Colorado. The address is 1339 South Garfield Avenue, right next to the Furniture and Decor store. I offer all kinds of services for athletes or people just looking to get in better shape. I coach strongman, powerlifting, general fitness and training, and I work with people with all kinds of injuries as well. I am a private gym, so if you are interested in scheduling a session, please give me a call at 970-402-1330. Once again, that's 970-402-1330. Or shoot me an email, and that's at grantperformance1@gmail.com. That's GRANT performance1@gmail.com. Thank you for listening to 1360 KHNC. The roar of the Rockies.
All of the music for the Bucky Dillon Morning Show was provided by my band, Beer for Bears. Find us on social media by looking for Beer for Bears.
So, in Switzerland, to amend their constitution, Switzerland, by the way, holds popular votes 4 times a year. But to amend their constitution, they must hold a mandatory referendum and eke out a double majority with its cantons. There are several in total, and they rotate the title of president yearly. People vote in the majority the president is represented by the majority of the voters. Switzerland seems to be one of the few countries with an IQ high enough to distrust its elected officials to fulfill their promises, which I wouldn't say takes a high IQ. I would say that takes basic common sense. Branching off from this infinite wisdom, the Swiss are also skeptical of elected officials writing and proposing new initiatives. They therefore allow any Swiss citizen to draft an initiative. And if they can find 6 others to hop on board, then they can start collecting signatures. Once 100,000 signatures have been gathered, the proposal will go in front of the country, needing the aforementioned double majority to become law. Make no mistake, people propose all kinds of wonky initiatives. There was a guy in China who told me that his neighbor's mission was to keep farmers from cutting off the horns of their bulls, and his initiative was well on its way to 100,000 signatures. My friend actually voted in favor of it, of course. Strangely, though, less than half of the eligible voting population ever turns out to vote. The paradox of direct democracy, as measured by a few countries that operate with some form of it, is that fewer voters turn out when they believe everyone has a voice. Goes to show that people trust their fellow man far more than they trust their politicians. But what about the other direct democracies, like in Europe? Look no further than little Liechtenstein, a mountain kingdom of fewer than 50,000 inhabitants. It's got the world's highest purchasing power parity, and their per capita income is more than double the United States', a whopping 139,000 USD. Liechtenstein also boasts Europe's wealthiest monarch, an ironic twist for a nation that runs on direct democracy. The real kicker is that the prince didn't inherit his wealth, but rather accrued it through business. I mentioned that this country is also highly capitalist and rated as one of Europe's best nations to do business in. That's right. The free market and true democratic freedom prop up one another in little Liechtenstein. Let's take one of the West's most contentious issues at the moment, citizenship rights. Liechtenstein has shirked the burden of laws and committees that decide who can and can't immigrate. Instead, immigrants live in the community for a certain amount of time before their neighbors vote on whether or not they can become citizens. Better be on your best behavior if you want to become a citizen of Liechtenstein. Liechtenstein proves that it's the people of a country who ought to decide which new people get to stay and vote. After all, any new citizen will be allowed to participate in the direct democracy. Guys, thanks for hanging out with me on the Bucky Dillon Morning Show. Just remember, if you want to support my efforts here, if you want to support my research, go to 1360khnc.com and purchase some CBD products. You'd be doing yourself a great favor, and you'd be doing me a great favor. I'll catch you guys tomorrow. All the love in the world. Bucky Dillon to you. Good night. Good morning.
COVID has stopped Triangle Cross Ranch from conducting any fundraisers since March of 2020. Current state government issues has stopped our ability to have fundraisers until March 2021. We need financial donations to get through the rest of the year. Any financial support is welcome, or just send $1 US silver dollar a month to support our Christian mission. Triangle Cross Ranch, 36049 County Road 51, P.O. Box 727, Gailton, Colorado, 80622.
You can buy gold just about anywhere in the world from all kinds of different dealers. So why do you use the Patriot Trading Group?
20 years of service, just like that. A+ rating with the Better Business Bureau, just like that. Lowest prices, just like that. No solicitation, just like that. Buying or selling, just like that.
For all your gold and silver needs, call the Patriot Trading Group at 800-951-0592. Just